My wife cheated on me with our neighbor. Then after he died suddenly, she pawned our house's title for $300, $0, claiming she needed emotional support. And now she's claiming I stole her inheritance. Help. I think our marriage and life are crumbling. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating on him, let alone find out she's been lying and scheming behind my back for months. The whole thing exploded in my face faster than I could process it. One day I was a husband who thought everything was fine, and the next, I was staring at proof that my wife, Lisa, had been sleeping with our neighbor, Mike. Yeah, the guy next door. The one who always smiled at me when I mowed the lawn or took out the trash. Turns out that smile was hiding something much darker. It all started with little things, missed calls, strange texts, her disappearing for hours without telling me where she was going. I brushed it off at first. I mean, she was busy with work, right? But then I noticed her phone kept updating her location, and she was suddenly very secretive about her social media. She'd delete messages the second I came near, and her attitude towards me shifted. She'd snap at me for no reason, accuse me of not paying enough attention, and I could tell she was hiding something. The real shock came one night when I came home early from work. I'd forgotten my phone at the office, and as I was walking into the house, I saw her sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand, face buried in it. Her expression froze when she saw me, but she quickly masked it. I didn't think much of it until I noticed her messages open, something about meeting Mike, the neighbor, for a quick drink, and she'd even said she was looking forward to seeing him. I froze, my stomach twisting. That was the moment I knew something was wrong. I decided to dig a little deeper. I started watching her more closely, checking her phone when she wasn't looking, listening to her conversations. One night I caught her sneaking out after midnight, slipping into Mike's house. I followed her, heart pounding, and saw her go inside. I stayed outside, watching through a window, and what I saw was worse than I expected. Her in his bed, kissing him, touching him. The way she looked at him, like he was the only thing that mattered. It was like a punch in the gut. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How long had this been going on? Was it even about the sex? Or was it just about her needing someone else to feel alive? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I was just a guy trying to hold his family together, and here she was, sneaking around with our neighbor, trading intimacy for some cheap thrill. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew that once I did, everything would change forever. That night I sat in silence, replaying everything I'd seen and heard. It was like my entire world was crashing down around me. I didn't sleep and I didn't eat. I just kept thinking about the life I thought I had, about the woman I loved, the home we built, the future we'd planned. And now all of it felt like a lie. I had no idea how I was going to face her the next day. The truth was, I was scared, angry, and deeply hurt, but I also knew I couldn't pretend it wasn't happening anymore. The worst part, she was about to lie her way out of this, I could tell. She always did. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach that wouldn't quit. The house was eerily silent, like it was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how to start. When Lisa woke up, she was her usual bitchy self, snapping at me over breakfast, acting as if nothing had happened. She threw on her fake smile and asked what I wanted for lunch, but I wasn't buying it. I could see the cracks in her facade, and I was done pretending everything was fine. I finally blurted out, "Lisa, I know what you've been doing with Mike. I saw you. I saw you kissing him last night." Her face froze for a split second, then she sneered and rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. You're imagining things. You're just paranoid. Mike and I are just friends. You're overreacting as usual." Her voice was dismissive, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I pressed her, asking her to be honest, and that's when she started her typical lies. She told me she'd been lonely, that Mike was just a shoulder to cry on, and that I'd been too busy with work to notice her feelings. She claimed she never cheated, just talked to him, and that I was controlling and paranoid. I could see she was trying to gaslight me, but I wasn't falling for it. I told her I'd seen her with my own eyes, and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I demanded she leave, that I needed some space to think. She looked furious, her face twisted with anger and contempt. "Fine," she spat. "If you're going to accuse me of everything, then maybe I should leave. You're such a controlling bastard anyway." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I sat there, stunned, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak. How did it come to this? I thought I knew her, but now I realized I was just blind, trusting her to be the woman I married. Over the next few days, I started noticing more things that didn't add up. Her phone kept ringing off the hook, and she was secretive about her whereabouts. I found her deleting messages and hiding her phone when I walked into the room. Then I discovered she had pawned our house's title for $300, $0, claiming she needed emotional support after Mike died suddenly. She told me she'd been overwhelmed with grief and that I was unsupportive. That was the final straw. I couldn't believe she'd taken our home, our security, and pawned it for cash, money she insisted she needed because she was heartbroken. But I knew better. She'd been planning something, probably to run away or to fund some new life she was dreaming of with Mike's money. And now, she was claiming I was the bad guy because I stole her inheritance when I found out about the pawn. She had the nerve to twist everything around to make herself the victim. I felt like I was losing my mind. My wife, the woman I loved, the mother of my children, was a liar and a thief. The betrayal cut deep, and I didn't know how to fix this mess. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. The pain was overwhelming, but I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything. I had to find out the full extent of her lies and figure out what her next move was going to be. I just didn't realize how far she was willing to go. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Every time I thought I had a handle on what was happening, something new would blow everything apart again. I started digging into her financials, trying to understand how she managed to pawn our house's title and where that $300, $0 went. That's when I found out she'd been talking to a lawyer, claiming she was entitled to her inheritance from her late grandmother. Only problem was, her grandmother had left her nothing. Or so I thought. Turns out Lisa had been forging documents trying to claim some distant relative's estate and had even paid off a few fake debts to make it look legit. I was furious. How could she be so manipulative? She'd lied about everything: her grief, her innocence, her need for emotional support. She pawned our house, lied about an inheritance, and now she was spinning more stories to cover her tracks. I started to realize that her entire life was built on lies, her stories, her excuses, her manipulations. Every time I thought I knew her, she'd surprise me with another lie, another betrayal. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with proof. I found her lawyer's contact info, and I arranged to meet him privately. I wanted to know what she'd told him, how deep her plans went. When I finally sat down with him, he was surprised to see me, but I laid everything out: her forged documents, her false claims about the inheritance, her attempt to pawn the house. The lawyer looked stunned and told me that Lisa had been very aggressive in her legal claims, even threatening to sue me for abandonment if I tried to stop her. That was the moment I knew she was dangerous. She wasn't just cheating, she was scheming, lying, and trying to steal from us. I realized I had to act fast. I started gathering evidence: texts, bank statements, witness statements from neighbors who saw her sneaking out at night. I also hired a private investigator just to confirm what I already suspected. Lisa's lies went far beyond what I'd discovered so far. She was orchestrating a full-blown scam, and I was her target. I couldn't believe I'd married a woman capable of this level of deception. I'd always thought we had a simple life, a good marriage, but her actions proved otherwise. I felt betrayed, angry, and profoundly hurt. The woman I'd loved turned out to be someone I barely recognized. I started to think about divorce, about reclaiming what was left of my life. But I also wondered if I could stop her, if I could turn things around. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about her trying to take everything from me: our home, our future, even our reputation. I sat alone in my office one night, staring at the pile of evidence I'd collected. I knew that whatever was coming next would be worse than I could imagine. She was cornered now, and I could tell she was panicking. But I wasn't about to let her get away with this. not without a fight. I had to decide whether to cut her out completely or try to save what little was left of our marriage. Honestly, I was running out of options, and the pain of betrayal was eating me alive. I just hoped I was strong enough to see this through. The more I looked into her actions, the more I realized how deep her lies went. She had been planning this for months, maybe longer. I found phone records showing secret calls to shady lawyers and fake contacts she'd set up to support her bogus inheritance claim. She'd even gone as far as creating fake documents, forging signatures, and paying off some of her supposed relatives with money she'd stolen from us. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck unfold, and I was helpless to stop it. One night, I finally confronted her again. I told her I had all the evidence, that I knew about her scam, her lies, her manipulations. I told her I was done playing her game. She sat there, her face twisting with anger, and she spat back that I was just jealous, that I was trying to ruin her because I couldn't handle losing control. She said the whole thing was about her needing money to get her life back on track, that she'd never meant to hurt me, only to fix her own broken heart. That was her excuse, her favorite. I didn't mean for it to get this far, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw through her lies, her tears, her poor me act. I told her she was a manipulative, dishonest woman and that I was done being her pawn. I told her I'd be taking legal action to protect what's left of our assets and that I wanted her out of the house. She screamed, called me every name in the book, accused me of stealing her inheritance and ruining her life, but I was past caring. I knew her well enough now. She'd been lying to herself just as much as she'd been lying to me. That night, she packed a bag and left, but not before throwing a final punch. She claimed I was the real thief, that I'd been secretly hiding money, that I'd taken her inheritance, and that I'd betrayed her worse than anyone ever could. Her words echoed in my mind long after she was gone. I was devastated but also strangely relieved. I'd finally seen her true face. Her bitchiness, her manipulations, her greed, all laid bare. I felt like I could breathe again, even if the pain of betrayal still burned deep inside. Over the next few weeks, I contacted a lawyer, started the process of divorce, and took steps to secure my finances. I knew I'd never get back what I'd lost: trust, my home, my peace of mind. But I was determined to rebuild. I also hired a financial investigator to track down where her money had gone and to see if she'd been laundering funds or hiding more assets. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, and I wanted her to understand that you can't manipulate and steal your way out of a marriage without consequences. Looking back, I can't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. Anger at her for betraying me so completely, for turning our life into a lie, and sadness for what we once had. But I've learned something too, that sometimes the truth has to come out even if it hurts like hell, and that no matter how much someone lies or cheats, there's always a way to fight back, to protect yourself, and to move on. I don't know what my future holds now, but I do know I'm done with her games. I just wish I'd seen the signs earlier. Maybe I could have saved myself from this nightmare. After the initial chaos settled, I started to piece my life back together, though it wasn't easy. The house felt emptier than ever, and every corner seemed to whisper her lies. The legal battle was in full swing, and I was poring over every document, every email, every shady transaction I'd uncovered. The more I dug, the more I realized just how deeply she'd gone into her scheme. She had even managed to get a court to recognize her fake inheritance claim, but I had enough evidence to challenge it. It became a war of documents, testimonies, and legal maneuvers. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep my head up for my kids. They were too young to understand everything fully, but I could see the confusion and hurt in their eyes. I promised myself I'd do everything to protect them from her lies. I kept my distance from Lisa, except when it was necessary for legal reasons. Honestly, I felt nothing but contempt for her at this point. She'd lied so much, manipulated so deeply, that I didn't recognize her anymore. She was a stranger, someone who had tried to destroy everything I built, all for greed and selfishness. One day, I got a call from the lawyer with some surprising news. It turned out Lisa had been caught trying to transfer more assets illegally, more fake documents, more forged signatures. It was the evidence I needed to push the case further. I realized she'd been planning to disappear with what little she could get, maybe even take the kids and run. That thought terrified me. I couldn't let her do that, not after everything. I also started to look into her claims about the inheritance. Turns out her grandmother's will had been clear, nothing left to Lisa. She'd forged signatures, lied about debts, and tried to manipulate family members into signing fake documents. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. How could she be so ruthless? So willing to destroy everything for money? It was like she was a different person entirely. One night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the pile of legal papers and evidence I'd collected. I felt exhausted, but also strangely determined. I knew I wasn't going to let her get away with this. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again, but I also knew I had to fight for my rights and for my kids' future. I'd learned the hard way that people can hide their true nature behind a pretty face and a fake smile. Lisa was proof of that. Looking back, I realized that I made mistakes, ignoring the signs, trusting her too much, thinking love could fix everything. But I also learned that sometimes you have to face the ugly truth head-on. You can't fix a lie with more lies. I've come to accept that I can't control what she did or what she's trying to do now, but I can control my own future. I've started therapy, focusing on healing, and trying to rebuild myself from the wreckage she left behind. It's not easy, but I know I have to. I just hope other people in similar situations realize that honesty and strength are your best weapons when everything around you is crumbling. In the end, I managed to get everything sorted out legally. The court dismissed her fake inheritance claims, and I regained control over our assets. The house wasn't easy to keep. She tried every trick in the book to sell or transfer it, but I had the right legal counsel, and I stayed vigilant. The divorce was finalized a few months later, and I was finally free from her manipulations. It was a long, brutal process, but I learned a lot about myself in the process, about resilience, boundaries, and how dangerous lies can be when left unchecked. Looking back, I realized that her betrayal wasn't just about the affair or the money. It was about her losing her sense of morality and decency. She was willing to destroy everything for her own greed, and I was just collateral damage. It's painful to admit, but I've come to accept that sometimes people are who they show you they are, and you can't change that. All you can do is protect yourself, your kids, and your future. I've started rebuilding my life from scratch. I've moved to a new place, changed jobs, and focused on my children's well-being. I still have scars. Trust doesn't come easy anymore, and I sometimes wake up with nightmares about her lies. But I also feel a sense of relief, knowing I fought for what's right, for my peace of mind, and for my integrity. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small warning signs. And when you finally uncover the truth, don't be afraid to stand your ground. It's painful, yes, but it's also necessary. You can rebuild after betrayal, even if it feels like everything is falling apart. The most important thing is to keep your dignity intact, learn from the experience, and remember that you're stronger than you think. No matter how dark it gets, there's always a way forward.